Hey coders! In this video, we are going to learn the basics of HTML5 and we are going to build our first web page together. What is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Just to clarify, it is not a programming language, it is a markup language. In order for a language to be a programming language, it has to have logic. Like for example, an if-else statement. If this condition is true, then do this, else do something different. HTML doesn't have this kind of logic. It can only display and format elements called HTML tags. Even though it is not a programming language, it is the most important language of the web. It is the foundation and building block of every web page or web application out there. It's part of a family of three major languages that commonly make up a web page: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If we compare a web page with the human body, HTML is the skeleton, the bones. It is the code that gives structure to a web page. CSS can be compared to the muscles, the skin. It is the code that makes a website beautiful. JavaScript is the brains. It's the code that gives a website logic, instructions, handles information. JavaScript is a programming language. So what is HTML5? HTML5 is the latest version of HTML, and it has been designed to deliver almost everything you want to do online. It is open source, free to use, and cross-platform compatible. If your browser supports it, then you can use it on a smartphone, tablet, laptop, or TV. In the previous episode, I've showed you how to set up the assets folder and how to create our index HTML5. If you haven't seen it, go check out the video. I will leave a link at the top. We're not going to use the terminal in this tutorial, so I'm going to just drag it down. So I'm going to delete this index HTML5 because I just saw it that it's in my assets folder, and I don't want it to be in the assets folder. I want it to be outside in my first project. So I'm just going to delete it. And I'm going to click on my first project, create new file. I'm going to call it index.html. Enter. By the way, you can name this file whatever you want. I just named it index because it's the standard way to name the root file of a web page. If you upload it to a server, because it's named index, the server will know that this is the home page. This is what I need to open first. So now that we know what HTML5 is, let's actually write something in our index. Let's write hello coder, and I'm going to save it with Control and S. And let's open this file in our browser. I'm going to go to my first project, and here I'm going to open this index.html by double clicking on it. And yes, I will use Google Chrome. I am using Google Chrome, and if you don't have it yet, I recommend pausing this video and installing it. I will use it a lot in the future, and if you want to follow along, I really recommend using it. I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code and the browser next to each other. So this is it. We have opened together our first HTML5 in the browser, and Hello Coder is there. But what we wrote here is just a simple text. It's not actually HTML. In order to tell our browser that this will be an HTML document, we need to specify it. And we can do this with the doctype HTML declaration. So I'm going to delete this hello coder, and I'm going to write a less than sign, exclamation mark, and I'm going to write doctype HTML, and I'm going to close it with a greater than sign. It is important to note that this is not an HTML element, it's a declaration. Now that we declared that this document will be HTML, let's create our first root element. Enter. And this will be called, surprise, surprise, HTML. Type HTML and hit tab. VS Code will autocomplete the element for us. Hit enter. As you can see, this element represents the root of the HTML document. Element names are surrounded by angle brackets. Usually they come in pairs, and these are called start tag and end tag or closing tag. The end tag is similar to the start tag. The only difference is that it has a forward slash. The content goes in between these tags. Let's say, for example, hello again. I'm going to save it, go here and refresh. These tags can have so-called attributes on them that carry extra information. For example, on this HTML tag, we can specify the language that we will use. On the start tag, let's write lang, hit tab, it will autocomplete for us, type en. That means the language will be in English. This part is called the attribute's name or key. And in the quotation marks, we have the attribute value. So language is the key and English is the value. I'm going to delete this message. This HTML root tag has two child elements, a head tag and a body tag. So let's write head, body, tab. To visually represent that an element is a child, we usually indent it with a tab. This is a commonly used best practice amongst developers. In the head section, we put all the metadata information about our website, like for example our website's title, description, what characters we'll be using, or other important information. So let's add the title of our web page here. I'm going to type title, hit tab, and I'm going to name it my first web page. Control save, and I'm going to go here to the browser and refresh it. As you can see, the title of my web page changed right here at the top. We will come back to this head section later and add more bits and pieces to it, but for now, all you need to remember is that the head section contains information about our web page. Inside the body section, we will create the actual web page that the users will see. Let's create our first heading. I'm going to write H1 and hit tab. And I'm going to say my heading 1. Control and save, and I'm going to go here and refresh. So there it is, our first H1 heading. Just so you know, in HTML there are 6 heading tags. H1 is the largest and H6 is the smallest. So let's make some muscle memory and type all of these in. Hit enter here and type H2 tab and write my heading 2 on my keyboard, the end key. This will jump to the end of the line, and I'm going to hit enter and write H3 tab my heading 3 and enter H4 tab my heading 4 end key, enter H5 tab my heading 5 and enter H6 my heading 6, control and save, and refresh my browser. So there we go, we have all our headings 1 through 6. Now let's talk about how we comment our code so that the next developer or person who reads it will know exactly what we did. To leave notes or so-called comments, we will type in after the body, I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to type a less than sign, exclamation mark, hyphen hyphen. It auto-completed for us, and between these tags I'm going to write my comment. Headings. So now I know that after this comment I'm gonna put my headings. Save it. As you probably noticed, this comment will not appear in our web page. These are only for us developers. This is how we communicate and leave notes to each other, or even for our future selves. As our code gets more complex and more tags and sections will appear, these comments will be crucial for organizing our code. And this is again a coding best practice. Of course, it's optional, but in my opinion, this is what separates a great developer from a mediocre one. This way, our code will be more organized and easier to read. Now, let's create our first paragraph. I'm going to go here after the H6. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to write my paragraph. So in order to make this line a comment, I'm going to hit Control and /. After this, I'm going to write my first paragraph. Type P and hit tab. It will autocomplete for me. Enter. And here inside of this, I'm going to write my first paragraph text is here. Save. And I'm going to refresh this. And there it is, my first paragraph text. If I hit enter and type here something like lorem 5 tab, VS Code will generate for us some random placeholder text that has 5 words in it. So I can repeat this, lorem 5 tab, save, and refresh. Now let me show you how to use a plugin that we installed in the last video. It's called Live Server, and this is really handy when we work on a static web page like this. If I go to this index.html, right click on it, open with Live Server, it will open up for us a small server in a new browser tab. Then whenever we save our code, the web page in the browser will refresh automatically. If I write something like hello and control and save, you can see it automatically appeared. We don't have to hit the refresh button. This way we save a lot of valuable time. So now let's take a look at quotes. How we add quotes to our HTML. After the paragraph, I'm gonna write quotes and control / and enter, block quote, tab, enter, lorem, temp, tab. I'm gonna make this a little bit larger so we can see it better. I'm gonna save it with control save. Our block quote appeared here. As you can see, it has some kind of indentation, and with CSS we can then style this. Let's take a look at another quotation mark called abbreviation. So let's type ABBR tab. Inside our abbreviation we will type something like OMG, and in the title part we're gonna specify what OMG means. It stands for oh my god. Save. If we hover this OMG, you will see a title called oh my god. So this is an abbreviation. Let's go back to our paragraph, and in this paragraph, let's say we want this word here to be bold. All we need to do is type less than symbol B. It will automatically close it for us. So I'm gonna copy this text, Control and X, and inside I'm gonna Control and V and save it. Let's say that we want to make hello italic. I'm gonna write less than sign I, greater sign, Control X, the hello, Control V, Control save, and now you can see that hello changed to italic. Let me make this a little bit larger. Also, there is an HTML tag called strong tab, and here I'm gonna write something like this text is strong. Control and save. You can see that this does almost the same thing as the B tag. The difference is that strong is a semantic tag that you can later style. By default it's bold, but it can be anything you style it to be. Let's hit enter. We have another tag called EM tab, and I'm gonna write here this text is EM, short for emphasized. Control save, and you can see it's almost the same thing as the italic tag. The difference is the same. It's a semantic tag that you can change in the future with CSS to be anything you want. By default, it's italic. So we talked about tags, start tags and end tags, but there are also so-called self-closing tags. In this new line, let's write self-closing tags, control and / and enter, and let's write here HR and tab, and let's save this. As you can see, HR stands for horizontal line. This is used for separating content. Another element like this is BR. Hit tab, it stands for break. These elements close themselves because they don't accept any type of content inside of them. Just so you know, in the old days before HTML5, HR and BR had a backslash. You can still use it this way, but this / at the end is not necessary anymore in HTML5. HTML5 is smart enough to know that this is a self-closing tag, so I'm gonna delete this now. To illustrate what this break does, I'm gonna crop it from here. I'm gonna copy it right after this hello text. Control and V, Control and save. As you can see, this break forced the next text to wrap in a new line. We can copy it right over here or here and Control save it, and you will see that our text jumps in new lines. I'm gonna put it back here, hit enter, and another self-closing tag is the image tag. So I'm gonna write my image, Control and / to make it a comment, end button, and enter. So let's search for an image on the internet. Inside Google, I'm gonna search for free bonsai tree images. I'm gonna go to Images tab. I'm going to search for bonsai trees because this is one of my hobbies. You can search for whatever you want. I'm going to save this image, save it into my D, projects, my first project, and I'm gonna save it in my assets folder, save. I'm gonna go back to my first web page. If I open this assets folder, we can see that the download image is here. Inside our HTML, I'm gonna write EMG tab, and as you can see, it has two attributes. It has a source attribute. Here we're gonna write the source of our image. It is inside the assets folder / and for me it's called download.jpg. I'm gonna save it, Control and save. And there we go, we have imported our first image to our web page. This alt attribute is used for naming our image. I'm gonna name it bonsai tree image. Let's delete our assets from here and hit save. Let's see what happens. Now you can see that when something goes wrong and your image can be loaded, this alternative title will be shown for your image. Hit Control and Z, that means undo my last change. And I'm gonna hit Control and save, and my image is back. Another attribute that image accepts, for example, we can specify the height and width of our image. We can say height 20 pixels, save. As you can see, it's changed the height to 20. Or I can say height 200, save. Also, I can specify an attribute called width. I can write here something like 300. Control save. Now you see that the image is distorted because we forced the image to have 300 width and 200 height, but this is probably not the image's ratio. So I'm going to delete the width and leave only the height, save it. Now we can see that the width is set to auto. Let's hit enter here, and another important element in HTML is the anchor tag. So I'm going to write anchor tag and hit Control and / and enter. I'm gonna type A and hit tab, and it will auto complete for me. So as you can see, this A tag has an attribute called href, in which we can specify our link. Here I can type http://google.com, save, go to this link, hit enter, and it will redirect us to Google. You notice that Google was opened in the same tab as our web page. What if we don't want to do this? What if we want Google to open in a new tab? How would we specify it? We would actually need to add a new attribute to this A tag, and the attribute name would be target_blank. That means open up this link in a blank tab. Save this link to Google, and there we go. It opened Google in a separate tab. Let's go back to our project. We can also put href around our image. So I'm gonna write A tab. I'm gonna go inside and hit enter. With Alt and up arrow key, I can move this line inside, so I don't have to copy it. And inside this href, I'm gonna copy this link and add it here as well. I'm gonna save this. So now if we go to our image, you can see that the image turned into a link. If I click, it will open up the image. So now you can see that the browser can open up an image as well, not just HTML files. Okay, so we learned the basics of HTML5, and I would like to end this lesson here. Obviously, we just scratched the surface. There are a lot of other elements we need to talk about. But first, I would like to introduce you to CSS as well, so we can also style our HTML to look a lot nicer. In my opinion, CSS and HTML should be learned together because they complement each other, and one is dependent on the other. In the meantime, if you want to exercise more HTML and learn more basics, I recommend going to this website called Free Code Camp. It's this website. You can start coding for free here. I will leave a link in the description. If you like this video and learned something from it, give me a thumbs up and consider sharing it with your friends. In the next episode, we are going to learn the basics of CSS, so stay tuned. Until then, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.